Bum ba ba bum 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 ba ba bum ba 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 bum bum. I don't know what this song is. It's vaguely like Superman, but badly done, and I can't finish it because I don't know what to do. All right, welcome to the second video of 2018 for the 5-Year Club. This is the big picture. And in this video, I'm going to talk about what the macro kind of big picture statistics look like for Americans and their financial situation. The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand most of these people are not ready to be unplugged, and many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. And it's a very good thing that I was not Morpheus in the Matrix. But this is my overall point. We're going to review these statistics. They're going to look really bad. They're not going to match up with a lot of the affluence we can see on a daily basis, especially if you live in Silicon Valley, if you live in, Connecticut, New York City. And once you understand this disconnect, you're going to have a lot less lust for other people's possessions, because you're going to realize that those possessions are actually chains, and the fancy cars and the houses are really shackles that are holding people back from having the freedom to, make choices that they would enjoy more in their lives. So let's talk a little bit more about this stuff. So there was an article in the Atlantic about American food waste, and they reference a report from The Guardian that half of the food in America is wasted. This is for a lot of different reasons. One is that grocery stores sell more things when there is a lot of fruit in a basket, so they fill up the basket with fruit. Second thing is people expect to see perfect fruit, but there's a lot of fruit that comes off trees that's not perfect. So a lot of that stuff gets thrown away, and in some cases hopefully reprocessed as a different product, but a lot of it just gets thrown away. So I've always been obsessed with having a house, and I've wanted in the past a very big house. And so when I moved to the Bay Area, I looked around at the homes there, and all the homes are like, I don't know, even back during the recession, the homes around me were like 700,000, 800,000, a million, just really expensive. And I looked around and I was thinking, like, how can all these people be surgeons and lawyers? Because I'm from Georgia, and in Georgia, those are the jobs that you have if you own an $800,000 house. And I've studied it for a number of years, and what I've realized is that the people living in those houses are not surgeons and lawyers. Many of them have good incomes, but not the same income relative to cost of house that I'm used to in Georgia. Instead, these people are just up to their eyeballs in debt to quote-unquote own these homes. What you'll learn later is that when you have a 30-year mortgage with the huge interest payments that come with an $800,000 mortgage, for example, you don't really own the home. On a mortgage that long, you're kind of renting from the big banks, because you gain so little
equity on each payment, and you waste so much money paying all this interest to the big banks. So now I'm going to switch to my sheet of statistics that I've drawn up. So broadly speaking, 80% of Americans are not saving enough to have a good retirement. And I'm just going to run through these, and I'm going to try to leave you at the end with kind of the most important thing that you should take away from this in terms of statistics. 69% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. Holy crap. That is a really bad rate for emergency savings. And a good percentage of those people have zero. Let's see, it's 46% in this latest survey. And it varies by survey. So, Go Bankrates, for nothing saved had 46%. And then this Bankrate survey had 24%. But it's still, it's a large number. Maybe we'll, split the difference, call it a third. Now we look at retirement savings, which I guess would be in retirement accounts, which would not be an emergency fund. 33% have absolutely nothing, 23% with less than 10,000. And 10,000, maybe that lasts for 3 months. So you got 50% of people with less than 3 months of retirement. That's half the people. And we keep going down here. And I find this one interesting, this America Saves Week. I also really like this comic. That's what I feel like when I walk around and I see these things. So the America Saves Week survey is different because it's statements. It's what people think. Are these retirement savings sufficient? So you can see that over 50% of people believe that their retirement savings are sufficient. But then before, we clearly saw that 50% of the people, over 50% have 10,000 or less. So there's a mismatch here. There's a lot of people who think they have enough, but they don't have enough. And we go down to the next one. Most families, even those approaching retirement, have little or no retirement savings. Median retirement account savings of families by age 1989 to 2013. And what is the color here? 56 to 61. So that's the people on the cusp of retirement, $35,000 in savings, median. That means half the people have less than $35,000 when they go towards retirement. By the way, you're going to need more like $1 million for retirement, so $35,000 is like 3% of what you needed. That's how bad this is. And we look here at some census data. I think this is interesting. So we focus on the retirement age, because we want to see kind of where people are who have had enough years to prepare for this. And we see that they have a large amount of home equity, but that doesn't matter because they got to live in the home. And then what is this? This is $43,000 for about 4% of what they need. And this is again the median. So, at age 65, they have some decent home equity, but they have 4% of what they need for retirement. That, bottom half of the population has 4% or less of what they would need to retire comfortably. That's pretty bad. Same article, and I'll attach these article links to the description of this video. Women are less prepared. A lot of reasons for that, but I don't have time to go into it. It's a very interesting and complicated subject that deserves its own video, so I definitely need to do my homework and prepare for that. And then we look at comparison by age groups. Millennials, Gen X, and Boomers. Different generations with different challenges. Unsurprisingly, millennials haven't had that much time to save, so they have a larger population of people with zero retirement savings. But even when you get to the boomers, you can see that very large percentages have, less than $100,000, less than $200,000 in the bank. And $200,000 sounds like a lot, but if you're talking about $200,000 to live on for the next 20 years, that's not a lot. And at $200,000, it's like you're allowed to live, I don't know, 10 more years, maybe not, maybe 6 more years. I'd have to look at it, but it's not a comfortable amount, especially when you consider the high cost of healthcare in old age. And I'm gonna go moving on. So I think it's going to be more difficult for millennials to retire than boomers. So all these statistics that you've seen of how many people who are 65 or older who don't have enough, I think millennials, even more of them will not have enough. And why is that? Well, because millennials are staying single for longer, and being single for longer is more expensive. There are a lot of cost efficiencies in getting married. The stock market performance is expected to be worse than the bull run of the 80s and 90s. I mean, you can look up, videos by Warren Buffett talking about structural reasons why investments will have poor returns, and those poor returns are going to grow less and hurt our ability to retire. Furthermore, we got a lot more student loan debt and a lot higher housing costs, especially in the big cities. And when we take on this debt early in life, it means we're not investing earlier in life, which is where most of the returns for retirement come from. They come from the investments you make in your 20s and early 30s at the very beginning of the retirement plan. And so when you've got a lot of debt that you have to pay off before you can invest, it kills all the time your invested needed to grow regardless of the return rate, and it means your nest egg is smaller at the end of the game. Medical costs are increasing, so we're going to, have to pay more at the end for medical costs, and Social Security is dying. I think right now it's expected that by, 2024, they'll have to cut the benefit to 77%. If I'm retiring at 2047 or something like that, I don't know what it's going to be. I just know that the math doesn't work for Social Security. And about 12% of what I would get paid goes into Social Security, and the return rate on it is extremely sad. And at some point I'll do a Social Security video to show you what a ripoff it is, but I don't need to do that right now. On top of the fact that people aren't saving enough, consumer debt is at an all-time high. And specifically, I think, they're saying that, auto loans and student loans, and this gets a little bit more interesting even. We all know student loans is a thing. It'll have its own video. But the auto loans, the reason why that's a big factor is because since 2012, people have been pumping up the number of months that their auto loan exists. So instead of having 3 years to pay off their car, now the average is greater than 5 years to pay off these cars. So they end up paying a whole lot in interest for the car. And as we know, I like this. This is from Ray Dalio's How the Economy Works video. I love that video. When you take out a lot of debt, you might get an education for it, you might get a car for it, it feels pretty good, but you're going to have to pay that back later. And so on top of having a low savings rate and not saving up the money, as a country, we're also right now taking out a lot of debt that years down the line is going to prevent us from saving money in the future. And that's going to come home to roost. That's going to hurt us. Here is a view of recent working age statistics. So these are the percentages of various populations that are employed. And we can see that, in the total population of people 65 to 69, 20% were employed in 1994, and now that number is, 32%, I think. And I think the black line is just all 65, the population of all people 65 or older. And I think that was like 11% in 1994 that were employed, and now that number is, let's see, I think it's like 19? Am I getting that right? Am I following that right? Yes. And this trend doesn't seem to be falling. So there's going to be a lot more of us working after age 65 than had to in the 90s, if you had grandparents. So I think this trend will continue. I think things will get even worse. And people will have to continue working because they won't have the retirement savings. And here we look at, the rise of student loans from 1993 to 2015. These have a disproportionate impact on net worth and retirement savings at end of life, because these student loans are loans you're taking out at the very beginning of the period that you need to be saving and investing and paying for the last third of your life, essentially. And, at the same time that the student debt rises, earnings are just hanging out. They're not rising. And what this essentially means is that, you make an investment, if you want to call student debt an investment, because you expect that it will give you future cash flows. And the college education will give you future cash flows. But it's a worse investment over time when the student debt increases, because we're getting the same cash flows, but they're costing us more over time. And, default rates on student loan debt, we can see that the default rates per cohort are going up 2005, 2007, 2009. Student loan holders are defaulting earlier and at higher rates over time. And here's another one. This one is talking about the percentage of student loans that are delinquent by 90 days. So I guess red is student loans. Other loan types, blue, mortgage. So mortgage rates and auto rates, those have gone down. The default rates have gone down. But you got to realize in the case of the auto loan, probably one of the reasons why the default rates are so low is because the loan is stretched over such a large number of months that the payments are lower. And so in the short run, you're less likely to default. But the problem is it's sucking up more years where you need to be saving. And later in your life, when you need those savings and that money to get by, it's not going to be there. Then you're going to start to default on things or just live in poverty. It's not going to be good. So I'm going to go back now. And really the one thing I want you to take away, if you're going to remember any of these graphs, you can kind of forget a lot of these other ones. Yeah, they're bad. The one thing I want you to remember is roughly this, okay? Think about the prototypical retiree. And do they have enough money at age 65 right now to live out their life and have a nice retirement? 60% of people, the answer is no. For another 20%, I'm rounding the numbers to make it easier to remember. They kind of have enough. They have like less than $300,000, and for 20 years, that's not really enough. It's not comfortable. So they're like, meh. They're kind of waiting for the shit to hit the fan. 20% have saved enough. So it's like 60, 20, 20. 60, no, they're not doing well. 20, they kind of did something. The top 20%, yeah, they did the right thing, they made it. Now you imagine how these percentages can change for millennials. I think that the number of people in the nope category is going to go to 75 or 80. I think the meh category is going to shrink. And the yep category, here's the deal. Income inequality is increasing. Wealth inequality is increasing. So I would expect that the people who are in the yellow slice, who have been saving a lot, will continue to do better because they're doing the right things. They're doing the things that win in the current economic conditions. But most of the people are going to be in the blue. And this is very scary when 3 out of the 4 people you look around at work, you look around at the grocery store, you look around at the mall, 3 out of the 4 people in America, the richest country on earth, are going to be struggling for the last third of their life. This is really scary. But this is not necessary. America is the richest country on earth, and there is money here, and it is possible to get the money that's here. So it's possible to be in the yellow slice. You don't have to be in the blue. But you have to learn how to do it. You have to learn what are the specific things that win in this system, in this economy. So there's a hedge fund founder, one of the most successful. His company is the 5th largest privately owned company in the U.S. It's called Bridgewater. And it was started by a guy named Ray Dalio. He's a billionaire. He made a wonderful video called How the Economic Machine Works. I think you can look it up on YouTube. It's about 30 minutes. And he also recently published a book, but I don't need to talk about that. Anyway, he talks about breaking America into 2 slices. The bottom 60%, right, which is kind of what I was talking about here. These are the people who did not make it to retirement. And the top 40%, the people who did make it to retirement or kind of made it to retirement. Now, he's talking about the whole country, not just retirees. But I draw an analogy there. So he says, since 1980, real incomes have been flat or down for the average household in the bottom 60%. Those in the top 40% also now have an average of 10 times as much wealth as households in the bottom 60%, an increase of 6 times as much in 1980. So in other words, the top 40% have gained, the bottom 60% have not really moved. And what this is telling me, I mean, call me cynical, but it's telling me don't be in the bottom 60%. There are things you can do to be in that top 40%. And when you do those things, the system rewards you for being in the top 40%. But you have to do those things, and you have to learn what they are. And that's going to be a big part of what I discuss in later videos. I'm going to discuss areas of the economy that are doing well. I'm going to discuss jobs that do well. I'm going to discuss jobs that you would think could do very well, but for various reasons don't. And I hope that as I lay out that information, it's going to help you to figure out how to think about this for yourself and how to find a path that's the right combination between something that you're passionate about and that you like doing and something that can make you successful in this wealth building game that will allow you to execute your long-term visions and give you the money that you need to execute your long-term plans. Okie doke. That's the end of the video. So, to wrap it up, I just want to emphasize people right now retiring, 60% have basically nothing. They have like less than $10,000, less than $50,000. I forgot what I picked. It doesn't matter. That money goes away in a year or two. You know, medical costs when you're old, they can easily consume $100,000 like that. The top 40%, they're better off, but only half of them are really prepared. And so when you look around at older people, really 4 out of every 5 are not doing very well. And because we know that in the future this is going to get worse, when you look at people who are not retiring yet and you look at their consumption behaviors, you have to realize that, yeah, some of those people have the net worth to justify that consumption, but a lot of the consumption is what's the phrase? It's something like importing prosperity from the future. Yeah, but the problem is when you import prosperity from the future, you take it away from the future. That was a paraphrase of a quote from the book Debt: The Last 5,000 Years. Good book, a little boring, a little long, but worth reading if you're into that kind of stuff. All right, that's the end of this video, and I think the next video I'm going to talk about the difference between income and net worth. I think that's what I need to cover. All right.